The third key message is to position baby on their back to sleep. And if we look at all the babies that die of SUDI, if you look at the night before they died, what position were they put to sleep in? 5% of these babies were put to sleep on their back, 31% were put to sleep on their side, and 64% of their babies were put to sleep on their front. And for me, when I look at this graph, at this data, 5% of these babies die on their back, 95% of them die on their front or side. The safest place to put baby to sleep is on their back. So what are some of the common barriers to babies sleeping on their back? Well, one is family tradition. A lot of families have been sleeping their babies on the front or side for many years. So it's common for those families to continue that tradition. Another reason is that sometimes babies sleep easier on their tummy or they settle better. Also, people have the perception that babies could choke on vomit if they put on their back. And another one is some families are, I guess, wary because of getting a flat head or plagiocephaly from sleeping on their back. So, family tradition. In the 1920s, the official safe sleep message for New Zealand of where you sleep your baby was on the front. In the 1950s and 60s, it changed to sleeping on the side. In the 1990s, it changed to sleeping on their back. And this is problematic because it means that there's generational mixed messages. So my grandmother got one message, my mother got another message, and my wife gets another message. And this type of confusion is really difficult for families. They don't know who to trust or what is right or what is wrong. Many families find that babies sleep easier on their tummy, and there is evidence to support this. The first reason is that babies have a reflex response on their back, where they will bring their hands up and it startles them and wakes them up. Another reason is that it limits their view when they're on their stomach, whereas babies being placed on their back means they have a lot of external stimuli, but keeps them excited, keeps them alert, and keeps them awake. However, even though these things are true, it doesn't mean that it's safe for them. There is a much higher SUDI risk, and there is a chance that they have lower oxygen levels and it stunts their brain development. So here's a picture of a baby sleeping on their tummy, and the baby's obviously having a really good sleep. But if we look at what's going on inside, we can see that it may not be the safest place for baby to sleep. So here's a picture of an adult skull. Adults have a big, thick jawbone, as you can see in this picture. Whereas if we compare that with a baby's skull, you see that the baby has an underdeveloped jawbone. And it's this underdeveloped jawbone that can have the risk of restricting baby's airway and lowering their oxygen levels. So in this diagram, you can see that babies breathe through their nose and they have a thin airway. And it's this airway being thin that puts them at risk. So whenever there's any kind of chin pressure, as you see in this diagram on baby's chin, because they don't have a developed jawbone, it restricts the back of their throat. And when you restrict throat, you restrict oxygen levels. And it's this restriction of oxygen that makes baby want to go to sleep. So what's really going on in this picture is that baby's oxygen level is dropping. And because of this oxygen level dropping, baby wants to go to sleep. However, it's not safe for them. It restricts their oxygen to their brain and restricts their development. Now, another common concern of families is that babies could vomit and choke on their own vomit. And if you look at this diagram here, you can see that baby's esophagus or digestive tract is on the bottom and baby's airway is on the top. And when the vomit comes up, gravity pulls it straight back down into the esophagus. However, if you look at this picture where baby's on the front, the esophagus, the digestive tract, and the airway are switched places. So when the vomit comes out, the vomit goes onto the mattress, obviously, but there's a chance that a small section of vomit will drip down from the digestive tract into the airway. And it's this vomit here that you have to be wary of. So definitely babies are safe when they're on their back from vomiting. Okay, another common concern of families as to putting babies to sleep on their back is flat heads or plagiocephaly, which is basically just the flash word for flat head syndrome. So the thing you want to do is you want to use tummy time while baby is awake. So we're only saying to put baby to sleep on their back when they are asleep. When they're awake, stick them on their tummy, let them crawl around. The second way you can prevent flat heads is by placing baby at different ends of the baby bed. So if mum and dad is on one side of the baby bed, baby will look towards mum and dad. And if you put them on the opposing side the next night, baby will look on the other way. And this gives the time for the skull to realign itself.